Jack worked at the only gas station in a small American town. The station was old but well kept, its walls bright with the bold colors of advertisements for soda and snacks. Jack was in his mid-30s, with a charm that seemed to work on everyone who passed through. He liked to think of himself as a man of many talents. In truth, he knew little about cars, but that didn't stop him from acting as if he were an expert. He spent his days at the station telling anyone who would listen about the cars he fixed or the problems he could solve. Jack was always trying to impress others, especially women. He would tell tall tales about fixing complicated engines or performing miraculous repairs. People liked him for his confidence, though some of them could see through his act. Betty, his co-worker, was one of those people. Betty had been working at the station for years, and she was tired of hearing Jack boast about his non-existent skills. She often warned him to be careful, reminding him that lying might get him into trouble one day. But Jack only laughed it off. "What's the harm in a little exaggeration?" he would say. "People love a good story." He would flash a grin and shake his head, as if Betty just didn't get it. He wanted to be admired, and in his mind, it didn't matter how he got it. Betty watched him closely, shaking her head with concern. She wasn't fooled by his charm, but she also knew that he meant no real harm. It was all just a game to him. At least, that's what he thought. But deep down, Betty wondered if Jack would ever learn the value of honesty. It was a sunny afternoon when Samantha drove up to the gas station with her young son, Liam. Samantha was a school teacher in the town, and she was known for being friendly and kind-hearted. She had long brown hair that she usually wore tied back in a ponytail, and a warm smile that put everyone at ease. Liam, her 6-year-old son, was a curious and energetic boy who loved asking questions about everything around him. Samantha pulled into the station, filling up her car as Liam hopped out to stretch his legs. Jack was quick to notice her, as he was with anyone who seemed new or interesting. He was immediately drawn to her smile, her kindness, and the way she carried herself. "Hey there," Jack called out with a big grin, walking over to her car. "Nice ride you've got here. Bet it runs like a dream, huh?" He said it in a way that made it sound like he knew everything about cars. Samantha smiled politely, but she didn't need to be told how her car ran. "Thanks, but it's just an old model. It's nothing special." Jack leaned in a little closer to her car, inspecting it like he was some kind of expert. "Oh, well, I've seen cars like this before. They can have engine problems that people don't even notice. Why don't I take a quick look?" "You don't want to be stuck with a broken-down car, do you?" Samantha hesitated. She didn't want to be rude, but she didn't feel like there was anything wrong with her car. Still, Jack was insistent, and something about his tone made her feel like it wouldn't hurt to let him check. "I suppose so," Samantha said, trying to be kind. "But it's really not necessary." "Let me just take a quick look," Jack insisted, flashing her another grin. He popped the hood of her car without asking further, his hands moving with the confident speed of someone who pretended to know what they were doing. Liam, who had been running around the station, noticed Jack's movements. He tilted his head, watching curiously as Jack poked around under the hood. "Mom, is he fixing the car?" Liam asked, a little confused. Samantha looked over at her son. "I don't think he's fixing anything, honey. He's just checking." Jack's movements were quick, almost frantic, as he tried to find something that he could point to as a problem. After a moment, he stood up straight with a look of satisfaction. "There's a slight issue here," Jack said with a grin, though Samantha couldn't see anything wrong. "You'll want to come back tomorrow. I can take care of it for you then." Samantha felt a bit uneasy, but she didn't want to argue. "Okay, thanks," she said, giving Jack a polite nod as she got back into the car with Liam. "I'll think about it." As they drove away, Liam asked, "Do you think the car really needs fixing, Mom?" Samantha wasn't sure, but something about the whole situation didn't sit right with her. The next day, Samantha couldn't shake the feeling that Jack had tricked her into thinking there was something wrong with her car. She hadn't noticed any issues, and it seemed strange that he'd asked her to come back so soon. But what could she do? She didn't want to cause a scene or make things awkward. So she decided to go back, just to see if Jack was telling the truth. Tom, her husband, was a carpenter. He was hardworking and practical, always fixing things around the house. He trusted people, but he didn't like the idea of anyone taking advantage of his family. Samantha decided to tell him about Jack's strange behavior. "Tom," she began one evening, after Liam had gone to bed, "I think there's something off about Jack at the gas station. Yesterday, he said there was a problem with the car, but I don't know. I didn't see anything wrong with it." Tom raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying he's trying to trick you?" Samantha sighed. "I'm not sure, but I don't want to make a big deal out of it. What should I do?" Tom thought for a moment, then looked at her with a calm expression. "We'll figure it out. Why don't we just play along and see if he's being honest? Maybe we can catch him in the act." Samantha wasn't so sure about going along with it, but Tom seemed confident. He suggested they go back the next day, and he would come with her, just in case things got strange. They didn't want to make it obvious that they didn't trust Jack. but they needed to figure out if he was being dishonest. As they made their plan, Samantha couldn't help but feel a little nervous. She didn't like confrontation, but she knew Tom was right. If Jack was trying to scam them, they had to stop him before it went any further. The next day, after some thought, Samantha decided to follow Tom's suggestion and return to the gas station. She didn't want to make a fuss, but she felt like something wasn't right, and her instincts told her to be cautious. Tom, being the practical man he was, supported her decision. He understood that Samantha wasn't the type to jump to conclusions, but he also wanted to make sure no one took advantage of her. Over dinner that night, after Liam had finished his meal and was playing in his room, Samantha shared her concerns with Tom once again. "I just don't know, Tom. Jack's behavior made me uncomfortable," she said, stirring her fork through her salad. "He was too eager, too fast to tell me that my car had a problem. And when I asked him about it, he barely explained what was wrong. It's like he wanted to get me to come back for some reason." Tom leaned back in his chair, thinking for a moment before answering. "Maybe we're overthinking it, but I don't like how he acted either. Let's be careful about it, and if he really is trying to scam you, we'll handle it." Samantha nodded, feeling a little more reassured by Tom's calmness. She loved how he was always so steady in situations like this. He was a man of action, and he could be trusted to follow through. "I'll go back tomorrow," Samantha said, "but this time I want you to come with me. I don't want to go alone." Tom agreed immediately. "Of course, we'll go together. Don't worry, I'll have your back." The next morning, Samantha and Tom made their way to the gas station, with Liam in tow. Tom's presence gave Samantha confidence. They arrived at the station just as Jack was finishing up with another customer. He saw them pull in, and his face immediately lit up with a broad grin. "Well, well, well," Jack said, his tone smooth and friendly. "Look who's back. I was just telling myself, there's no way she's not coming back. That car's in worse shape than I thought." Samantha gave him a polite smile, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "I'm just here for that inspection you mentioned. I thought I'd see what's wrong with the car." Jack walked over to the car, his hands moving quickly as if he were on a mission. He peered under the hood and began rattling off more technical terms, as if trying to sound impressive. "I'll tell you, it's the timing belt. It's practically shredded. You should have seen it yesterday. I can't believe it didn't break down on you already." Samantha glanced at Tom, who was standing beside her, arms crossed. He raised an eyebrow, looking skeptical. "Shredded timing belt?" Tom asked, his voice calm but firm. I didn't notice anything wrong with it. Are you sure about that? Jack froze for a second, caught off guard by Tom's direct question. But Jack quickly recovered, brushing off the remark. Oh, yeah, I'm sure. It's really subtle. You know, you wouldn't notice unless you really know what you're looking for. Tom smiled politely, but didn't let it slide. I see. Well, if it's that serious, I guess we'd better get it fixed then, huh? Samantha's discomfort grew. She wasn't buying Jack's explanation anymore. She looked at Tom, who nodded ever so slightly, signaling that it was time to move forward with their plan. I think we'll pass on the repair for now, Samantha said, trying to keep things friendly but firm. Thanks for your help, Jack, but we'll take the car to someone else for a second opinion. Jack looked momentarily taken aback, but he quickly masked his surprise with another grin. Of course. I understand. Just let me know if you change your mind. I'm the best mechanic in town, you know. Samantha smiled and waved him off, feeling the unease lift a little. She and Tom got into the car with Liam, and they drove away. But both of them knew that they hadn't quite gotten to the bottom of things yet. That evening, Tom and Samantha sat down to discuss their next move. They both knew that Jack's behavior wasn't just a case of friendly overconfidence. He was trying to manipulate them into paying for repairs that weren't needed. They needed to take action, and it had to be careful and smart. I think it's time we get Betty involved, Tom said. She's worked with Jack long enough to know his tricks. She might be able to help us catch him in the act. Samantha agreed. Betty, who worked at the gas station with Jack, had always been a little suspicious of his antics. She had warned Jack a few times before, and while she wasn't one to gossip, she had seen Jack's lies come and go. It was time to bring her into the fold. The next morning, Tom stopped by the gas station before work to have a private conversation with Betty. She was cleaning the counter when he walked in. Now, from this point, the story will be continued in the next part.